Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm Dr. Nicole, and today I'm answering a question from one of you. We're going to talk about helping kids get more comfortable with making mistakes, specifically how to ask for help when they need it, but are resistive to asking for it. The question today comes to us from Emma, who writes, I'm struggling with my sixth grade daughter who refuses to ask for help, even when it's obvious she needs it. This is becoming a major issue with school assignments as she's encountering some material she doesn't instantly understand. It's also an issue at home with various things, as she'll say she understands something and knows what to do, but then it becomes clear she actually doesn't. I've tried talking with her about it. I've tried reassuring her that we all need help sometimes and it's okay to ask. But beyond that, I'm just not sure what else to do. Any suggestions are welcome. Well, Emma, many parents deal with this at some point or another, and you have a sixth grade daughter, but this actually can come up with kids of all ages. I've seen this come up with young kids, as well as all the way through teen and even young adult kids. So I'm going to provide some big ideas and some strategies that hopefully will apply to lots of you who are dealing with this. A few of the big picture ideas. The first is that we really want to acknowledge the struggle that a kid is having with this and the underlying feelings around this. It can be easy to jump into trying to address the surface level behavior of the kid not asking for help, but we have to back up first and really look at what's underlying this struggle or this resistance around asking for help. And we need to get to the emotions of it. And we need to help kids understand what are the emotions that are happening for them that are feeding into this. Very often it's embarrassment, shame, anxiety, disappointment. Can be all of these things and more can be driving this sort of not only, can I not accept or tolerate making mistakes, but also I cannot or will not ask for help around these things. So connecting to those underlying emotions, what is it that's really going on there? Sometimes kids know, sometimes they don't. Depends on their age, depends on how attuned they are to their feelings. So in uncovering this and talking with kids about this, sometimes we as the adult need to offer some options or give some suggestions based on our experience of what might be happening. Like, wow, I wonder if you're feeling kind of embarrassed around that. Or lots of kids feel kind of nervous or anxious about asking for help, or they get anxious about what the other person might think if they don't know how to do something. So we sometimes need to kind of get the ball rolling to provide some suggestions of what might be going on with those underlying emotions, and then dialogue with kids about that and see if they can then identify for them what are the feelings that are going on that are feeding into this. And then we want to normalize those feelings. We want to acknowledge them and accept them. Whatever feeling your child is having around this, it's okay. There aren't good feelings and bad feelings or normal or abnormal feelings. Their feelings are all okay. So we want to acknowledge them. Oh, I get it. You're feeling really embarrassed about having to raise your hand to ask for help, or you're feeling really anxious about what the teacher or the other kids will think if you need to ask for help for something. We want to acknowledge it and we want to accept it and say, oh, so many people feel that way. And even provide some connection to our own experience of, oh, I remember feeling that way when I was your age. Or, sometimes I still feel that way with my boss at work or whatever it might be. And after we identify and acknowledge and accept those feelings, we want to allow ourselves and our child to just be with those feelings and not jump right into the let's fix this mode. Okay, that's really important. We want to be with this kid in the space of, man, it's really hard to feel those things. That's key because this teaches kids to be tolerant around the feelings that they're having. It teaches them to get more comfortable with feeling uncomfortable things. And when we can do that for ourselves and our kids, oh man, does that unlock the door to so many things that they're able to handle better, they're able to be resilient around. So we want to really sit with these feelings and say, man, it's so hard to feel those things. I know what that's like. And be willing to just be in that space with them without jumping right to the solving or the, you don't need to feel this way or whatever. Recognizing it, being in it, letting them know, yeah, it is hard. And this is something we deal with. And it's okay that it's tough. So that's the first big picture idea. The second big picture thing that we want to focus on is normalizing mistakes and the feelings that come with them. And to do this, there's several strategies that we can use around this. The first is to practice making mistakes intentionally. Now, this might sound ridiculous at first, but I think it's a really important technique for kids of all ages, even good for ourselves as adults, to have some practice with intentionally screwing up. Because here's the thing, mistakes are going to happen. They are absolutely a part of life. There is no avoiding them or preventing them. So we want to normalize this for kids, that not only, are you going to make mistakes, you're going to make lots of mistakes in your life, and it's okay. And we can make mistakes, and also in doing that, practice getting used to the feelings that come along with making mistakes. So you can come up with lots of ways to practice this depending on the age and preferences of your child. I've done this with kids of taking them out to the basketball hoop if they're into, sports and basketball, and practice missing shots. We can do that with the wastebasket and, ping pong balls, or wadding up, paper and tossing it in and intentionally trying to miss. I've done it with, young kids with saying, okay, here's some pitchers of water and we're going to practice spilling when we pour it into the cup. Or here's some paper, maybe some coloring book pages and some crayons. We're going to practice coloring outside the lines, or we're going to tear the paper. We're going to practice spelling things wrong. Whatever you can come up with, it doesn't matter what the activity is, but the goal here is to intentionally make mistakes. Now, sometimes, especially as they get older, kids will roll their eyes at this and say, oh, but if we explain to them what we're doing, then it makes more sense of, oh, the only way that I can learn to tolerate and get used to the uncomfortable feelings that come with making mistakes is to practice feeling them. And I can take the power out of that by intentionally doing it. And so that's a good way to normalize it and start to get kids more comfortable with this. Also really helpful for you as the adult to model your own mistakes. Now, kids might see you make mistakes like, oh, I was, making these muffins for breakfast and I totally lost track of where I was in the recipe and put the wrong thing in. They might be there for you to spotlight in that moment that happened. But you can also spotlight and talk about mistakes that you make when they're not around. Oh man, let me tell you about this thing that happened at work today, or when I was at the grocery store, or whatever. So you're modeling and spotlighting your own mistakes, which again takes some of the power out of them. It normalizes it. It's a way of saying, hey, we all do this. So model your own mistakes, model your own instances of not knowing. Maybe you forget, oh man, what do I have to do next here? And your child can help fill in the gap with that. Or, maybe somebody asks you something, your child asks you something and you say, oh man, you know what? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm going to need to look that up, or I'm going to need to ask somebody. So you're looking for opportunities to spotlight this and model this for your child, and opportunities for asking for help. You might find some opportunities to ask your child for help, to ask your partner for help. You might talk about, around the dinner table over something that you needed to ask for help for at work. This whole idea of modeling and spotlighting your own mistakes, not knowing, needing to ask for help, and the feelings that you experienced with each. Like, oh man, I could not remember my password to get into the computer program that I needed when I got to work. And I felt so frustrated with myself because this is the third time this month that I have forgotten the password. I was feeling frustrated, also feeling really embarrassed. And I had to reach out to tech support and ask them for help with that. And man, that felt embarrassing because they've had to help me with it before, but I knew that it was important. I needed to get the password. So this is an example of how we can talk about this, not just the what happened, but also the feelings that we had and how we worked through that. So that's key. Another piece of this is to make sure you're praising and spotlighting the effort that your child is making in wrestling with hard things, in feeling uncomfortable feelings, in managing difficult situations, and that you're not just reserving your praise or positive comments for whatever the final result or score or grade was. And that's key, especially for kids who don't have a lot of tolerance for distress or anxiety around their performance with things, around maybe their grades or, the score at the end of the game or whatever. We want to make sure we're praising the process, praising what we notice about them being in the difficulty of those feelings and making it through. Like, oh man, I noticed, when your team was down by 15 points, I could tell you were really feeling badly about that, but I watched you continue to huddle with the team. You went out there and you were running hard and you were doing the plays. And, I could see that you were working really hard, even though you were feeling, so frustrated or so embarrassed or whatever about it. And that's where we want to spotlight that, because in doing that, we're giving them a better focus, which is on the effort that they're making, that it's not just about the final product, the final grade, the accomplishment. It's about the process of getting there and the progress and the effort that we're making. In practicing with kids around things like asking for help and making mistakes, it's important that we don't jump in and start with the toughest things or the areas where we're seeing this be a real problem. So in the situation that Emma is dealing with, it's around her daughter, particularly with school and asking for help in the classroom or asking for help on assignments. I would not start with Emma practicing around this with those kinds of high stakes things, because that's likely to bring a lot of resistance and a lot more intense emotions. Instead, I'm going to start with some lower stakes kinds of opportunities at home. We're going to practice with mistakes around spilling something, or we can't find something, or asking for help with minor kinds of things in a one-on-one situation at home. We're not going to jump right in and try to target dealing with this in tough public situations. So we want to practice with giving our kids something to do that they will need to ask for clarification, support, or help around. An example could be maybe she's making a batch of cookies and you know that the cookie sheets are going to be too high for her to reach, or maybe you've actually placed them somewhere different than where they normally are. What you're doing is setting up an opportunity for her to need to ask for some clarification or some help. I don't know where the cookie sheets are, or I can't reach those, or I can't find them. Opportunities to practice with that, where there will naturally be a moment where some support is going to be needed, and it provides an opportunity for practicing communicating that or asking for that. Now, you don't want to be, praising her for doing that, like, oh, good job, asking for help with the cookie sheets. That's likely to send most kids right back into, oh my goodness, don't, pay attention to me about this. Don't spotlight this. Like, I don't want to do this. You just let the learning experience be there. The experience of it is the learning. So, you have the cookie sheet somewhere else. She needs to ask for where they are. You just let that stand for itself. You just be real casual about like, oh yeah, you know what? I think those got put back somewhere different. I think they're over here. And then just drop it and let that be the experience. Let her have that moment of doing that and asking for the help or the support and not having it be a big deal. Okay. So looking for opportunities that you can set up depending on the age and the abilities and the needs of your child, where it is very likely that they will need to come to you for some kind of clarification, support, or help. I think it's also really beneficial for kids to give them an opportunity to be a helper to someone else who has a need. This is sort of a reverse way of coming at it. This is a child who's struggling with their own feelings around needing to ask for help. By giving them an opportunity to be the helper, it again just gets them comfortable with normalizing the fact that everybody needs help sometimes. And everybody is also capable of offering help at other times. It goes both ways. We have both in us. So maybe it's running an errand for an elderly neighbor. Maybe it's, saying, hey, I need you to watch your little brother for a few minutes while I make this phone call. I need you to help me with that. Maybe it's finding opportunities to help around the house or at the grocery store or any kind of helping role. What we're spotlighting here is that, yeah, sometimes we need help and sometimes we're the one providing help, and that's all normal, and we can do both things and we act in both roles. And alongside this, I think letting your child be the one to teach you something that they're good at. Maybe it's playing a video game that they love, or, doing a craft, or maybe they read a book or watched a program about something and now they know a lot about it and you don't. Let them be in the role of teaching you. This not only is good for them to step into that helper role, but you can model then being in the situation of being the person asking for help or clarification or more information. And you can model that, asking questions, asking, for support. Oh man, what did you say about that when I get to this level in the video game? And, modeling the asking for help, the reaching out to ask for support. The last thing I'll say about this is if the issue is embarrassment about the act of asking for help in a public setting, this issue with Emma's daughter, seems to be about more than that because it's at home as well as at school. But some of you may have a child where the thing that's really getting in the way of them asking for help is when it is in a public setting like the classroom. So if that's an issue, all of the things that I've talked about will be helpful in working on that. But what we can also do is work with the child to come up with some options, some alternative ways that they can communicate that they need help or support. And not just in school, this can be in other places too. Sometimes it's an important stepping stone, and kids can tolerate their discomfort more if they write it down, for example. They have a question about something at home, they could send a parent a text or write it down and slip it under their parent's door. Or in the classroom, they can write their question or their need on a piece of paper and, set it on the teacher's desk. Or maybe there is a hand signal that the teacher and the child set up that nobody else knows, if the child can just quietly use that signal to let the teacher know, I need some help, I need some support here. Maybe it's something you work out with the teacher, where if it's a homework assignment that they're doing at home or something they're working on in the classroom, that they can just put a mark by it and turn the paper in, and that will alert the teacher that the child needs help with it, and they can circle back then another time and work on it with them. So lots of ways of doing this, and you need to be practicing with all the things that I talked about prior with helping kids get comfortable with these uncomfortable feelings, acknowledge those feelings, practice making mistakes, practice asking for clarification or help. All those things are important, but this is a specific strategy that you can use to support kids in these kinds of environments and as a bridge to getting more comfortable to raising their hand and asking for help, in the big classroom setting. These are some stepping stones that you can take, writing it down, some of these signals, things like that. So that's a lot of ideas around this. I hope that these things are helpful to Emma. And for all of you who are looking for ways to support your kids around mistakes and getting more comfortable asking for help. Remember, if you have a question you'd like to hear answered on a future show, email it to support@drbeurkens.com. Thank you as always for listening, and I will catch you back here next time.